Hey folks, BlackCross here, and welcome back to another discussion video, or rather an aftermath video. And I know what you're going to be asking, BlackCross, you're going to cover all 4 of these? The answer is yes, but we're going to be mostly talking about some of the highlights, some of the ones that grab my interest the most, obviously, like how I did with the State of Play, but I do want to talk about my thoughts on all of this. And well, with the exception of one, the other 3 kind of left me, I don't know what the word you would use, but I suppose the word, if I had to pick, would be meh, I suppose. I mean, not to say that there wasn't games. There were games, just not the ones that I would be interested in, you know? Like, I try to keep my anticipations low, and then be like, you know, look at other games and be like, oh, this might be something I might look into later on, or stuff like that, you know? And that happens. That can happen a lot of times, you know. Most of the times, you know, you're not always going to get like a top 10 or anything like that. Sometimes you get like a top 5 or even a top 3, you know. Sometimes that happens. And I'm sure some of you probably noticed the shirt that I'm wearing right now. It's like, oh, we know what your highlight is. It's like, yeah, but that's towards the end of the video. We'll get to that. First, let's talk about some of the other ones. So the first one is obviously Summer Game Fest. I knew they were going to have one. Second, we entered into June. We still have no E3, obviously. I knew for a fact that we at least are going to have Summer Game Fest. This makes perfect sense. And while watching it, I'm not going to lie, I'm glad that I didn't watch the live thing, you know? I know a lot of people are like, oh, you got to watch it live, you got to watch it live. These days, I can't, because sometimes they have them whenever I'm having to work. And I work 3rd shift, so I have to sleep. And most people are like, screw sleep. I did end up actually watching the actual event just to see if there was anything, and there are some stuff. I mean, some of the stuff I already knew was going to happen, you know, like the Cuphead DLC, I knew that was coming out, or maybe it's not even a DLC, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's still a DLC, but the way they advertise it, it makes it sound like it's its own game. Which that would not surprise me if they ended up making that much more courses and stuff like that many bosses and stuff. That would not surprise me. But I still believe it's still a DLC, if I'm not mistaken. Then, of course, there's Soul Hackers. I had heard about this earlier this year, and while I am a big fan of the Shin Megami Tensei series, I have not played every entry of Shin Megami Tensei. Soul Hackers is one of them because the first one was released only on the DS. And it's one of those things where it's like, I have not played the first one. As far as I know, they're not connected. I think, I'm not sure. From the way it looks, it definitely doesn't look connected. It looks like 2 sets of different characters altogether. So, I'm not sure. But, since it is coming out for PS4, I believe it's coming out for PS4. Okay, yeah, it is coming out for PS4 as well. I just want to make certain, so that way we got our information right and everything like that. But it's coming out for PS4 as well, so that will be something that I will probably get eventually. It's not on my immediate grabs, but it is something that I definitely would like to grab eventually at some point in time. But after the Summer Game Fest, they then had the showing for some of the indie developers and stuff like that. And one of them had my interest, actually. One of them had my interest of like, what's this? Type thing. I want to say this is the official name. It could be changed later on, but the name is Ree's Coast, or Ree's/Ree's Coast. I'm not sure what the title they're going to go for, but it's basically a humanoid fox girl and a frog traveling around this Japanese-esque style abandoned town. And they're just kind of exploring it, and it looked just so fascinating. Both in terms of the art style that I was seeing and the presentation. I was so interested in how it all looked. And record, yes, it kind of looks a little bit terrifying, but I'm not going to lie, I was hooked. I was like, daggum, I can't wait to play this. They've already confirmed that it's going to be a couple of years before it actually will see a release. But I'm like, I definitely want to kind of hang on to this because this actually looks pretty good. This definitely is right up my alley of like some of the more weird and obscure things that you don't normally see. This actually looks pretty interesting. This looks like it'd be fun. Moving on from the Summer Games Fest, we then move on to the Xbox/Bethesda showcase. And, well, I will say this much. Microsoft does have games. They do have games. How long some of these will stay exclusive, we'll find out for sure. I don't know what it is, but the majority of the games that I actually end up having an interest, and they're only exclusive to Microsoft, somehow eventually end up being on multiple consoles. There's Cuphead, it's now available for Switch as well as PlayStation 4. And then now Tunic, which was, if I'm not mistaken, was exclusive. Apparently time exclusive, and not that long of a time exclusive. But here we are, within the next few months, it will be released for the PlayStation 4 as well. So it's like, okay, I'll keep my eye open on this one, but something tells me it might come out to multiple consoles. Which wouldn't hurt me at all, but at the same time, it would hurt Microsoft in the long run, I think. You know what I mean? Like, I know Microsoft is taking a different lead on things, but at the same time, they need to kind of hone in on their exclusives in order to sell their brand and all that stuff. The only thing they've got going for them right now is Game Pass. Game Pass, admittedly, is very, very much alive. The way they've handled that project, the way they handle things, they have handled that so well, admittedly. And Sony is right now just jumping into that with their little premium thing. It just now started, by the way, just for those that are curious. They just had started their whole PlayStation Plus thing. And it's like, I wouldn't mind trying that out, but I would only try for a month just to see how well it would do. You know what I mean? Like, there's some things that I'm still a little skeptical on. For example, the whole streaming PlayStation 3 games and not download them. To me, I find that kind of bullshit, but that's just me. Anyway, moving on to the actual announcements. The games that had my interest, really, there was some of them was a little bit interesting, mostly because of how they look and what they were. Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, definitely looks interesting. I definitely kind of like that fox-looking creature that she had around with. Either way, it looked interesting, and it's like, yeah, I wouldn't mind this. A little bit confused at first, but I wouldn't mind trying this out, actually. Next one was actually Wu Long Fallen Dynasty. That one, mostly because of the, I may have it wrong, but I think that's like Chinese aesthetics? Chinese dynasty? I'm not sure. But it does look interesting. I definitely wouldn't mind actually looking into it as it comes out as well. But the biggest one that actually had my interest, and one that made me go, I need to kind of watch this showcase just to see what else they actually have, because this actually looks interesting. This is like my top pick right here, if I had to pick anything from the Xbox/Bethesda showcase, and that is Ravenlock. Ravenlock looks so interesting to me. It looks so good. Stylized wise, it's got like this weird pixel style look with 3D with 3D environments and stuff like that. It's so cool and so imaginative. It's like this weird looking Alice in Wonderland vibe. And I looked at it and I was just so into it. I was like, this looks like it could be fun. This looks like it could be entertaining. I definitely would love to see more of this. I want to see more of this game. This looks like fun. This looks really good. Although I do want to go ahead and talk about this one, since we are talking about Shin Megami Tensei and all that stuff. And that is the confirmation for Persona 3, 4, and 5 for Microsoft/Windows. And that's weird. You know, that's weird. It's weird because out of all of the things that people wanted Persona 5 to be released on, they wanted it on Switch, and instead they chose to release it on a Microsoft system, the Xbox. And it's like, not to say that that's a bad business choice, no. It needs more RPGs, it does. And this is definitely a good follow-up to do that. But at the same time, not releasing on the Switch, that's definitely weird right there. That's weird. That's one of those things where it's like, we want to release on the Switch. Well, screw you, it's going to be released on this console type thing. And I don't know. I don't know why they went with that. I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason, and maybe they'll eventually announce it. Maybe they won't even announce it at all, because obviously there's something going on with it. What's even more interesting, though, is that aside from Persona 5 Royal and Persona 4 Golden, Persona 3 is going with Persona 3 Portable rather than FES. which I thought that was interesting because if I'm not mistaken, the portable version does not have the extended story version that FES has. And it's like, they went with portable? I mean, on the one hand, a lot of people say that's probably the more definitive version or something like that. I can't remember. But at the same time, I'm like, portable though? Really? That's odd. Unless portable does come with the extended story ending or something like that. That would be pretty cool. That would be interesting to see. I guess we'll find out more as it gets further to release. It's just weird to see that Persona 3, 4, and 5 being released on an Xbox system. Although this gives me hope that we'll probably see Persona 3 and 4 being released for the PS4 or PS5. I hope so. That would be pretty cool if that ended up happening. So next up we have Capcom, and really, I don't think they should have had a showcase, because really, aside from like a handful of other titles, they really didn't have nothing else to show for. They had like mostly the Resident Evil stuff that they were talking about, and then of course they had the Street Fighter 6 they had. And it's like, I mean, not to say that that's bad, that's good. They're talking more about those games because that's literally the most talked about thing right now. But at the same time, it's like, but we already know about this, so why are you talking about it now? You know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Either way you look at it, the first 3 showings were okay. They were okay. They wasn't great. They had some good games, but not a lot to say that, oh yeah, definitely pick out. Like I said, in terms of like my top picks, it would be Reese Coast, Ravenlock, and like I said, Persona being on Xbox is pretty cool to have. But those are like the highlights that I have so far. And like I said, Capcom, the only big thing on that one would be Resident Evil 4 Remake. But we already got that reveal on the State of Play. So really, I don't know if we should count that or not. I mean, I guess we could, but either way. But now, we're going to be talking about the Final Fantasy VII 25th Anniversary Celebration Showcase. And I want to say something right now. Square Enix is hitting home runs with their showcases. They're hitting home runs. These are literally mostly 10 to 15 minute long showcases. So most people will be like, oh, they're only showing one game or something like that. No. If you watched the Kingdom Hearts 20th Anniversary event, they showed a lot more than just one game. They showed a whole plethora of updates. There was the update for the Dark Road event, the Dark Road story going on for Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. There's a new Kingdom Hearts mobile game called Missing Link. And then Kingdom Hearts 4. Again, this is big news when you think about it, looking at the Kingdom Hearts side of things. Here we are with Final Fantasy VII, and we've got a plethora of information. There's the fact that Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is going to be available for Steam, which is cool because the year that Intergrade was introduced, it was only a PS5 exclusive. And Final Fantasy VII Remake just had come out on Steam then. But it wasn't going to get the DLC. And it's like, that's kind of weird, but obviously it's time exclusive, so of course it's going to be a PS5 exclusive only. Here we are a year later, it's going to be available for Steam. So this makes sense. Then we have Ever Crisis, which is a mobile phone. They still stuck with the mobile phone. It looks like it would work perfectly for the Switch. It looks like the Switch could handle this. You're telling me you're not gonna do it. Why do companies do these things? Either way, they gave more updates on the whole Ever Crisis thing, and it still looks good. I think this is what fans preferably wanted. Whenever people ask for a Final Fantasy VII remake, still true to his roots, still true to the original, just upscaled or either rebuilt from the ground up with new looks and stuff like that. Obviously, a new paint job, basically. But with that being said, Square Enix is just hitting home runs. They hit home runs hard, okay? They hit home runs. So, the first big thing they got me with was the fact that they were going to be bringing Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII, into the remake scene. which is Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Yes, Crisis Core is getting a remake, but from the way it looks, it's not the reimagining remake I thought they were going to go for. It's actually a full-blown remake with the original story, with the original combat that was on the PSP version of Crisis Core. So that's interesting to see. That's interesting to see that it is getting a remake with still the combat, with still the story. I don't know if they're going to do any small, subtle changes that will reflect towards the remake series. I don't know. Obviously, this is just looking at it at face value and stuff like that. But whenever I was looking at the last one they showed, I noticed something. And we'll talk about that in just a sec. But that made me go back to looking at the Crisis Core Reunion. And here's what I found out was so interesting. So it comes out this winter. Now that could mean it could come out in December, maybe January, maybe even February. But it's coming out this winter, which is great in my opinion. That is cool. We're getting a Final Fantasy installment game. It's Crisis Core. And it's one that people wanted for so long. They've wanted a port. They're getting a remake, which is, I guess, depending on how you think about it, arguably better. I don't know. It's still the same gameplay. So you're getting a better version? I don't know. It just, again, it depends on the person's personal preference, I suppose. Because it's not the same Zack voice actor, I don't think. Because it definitely sounds different from the original Zack. But with that being said, the release date isn't the biggest thing. Even though it is. What's the biggest thing is the release systems it will be available. It's going to be available for PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, Steam, and Nintendo Switch. Which surprised me the most. That surprised me the most. We haven't got a confirmation from them saying that Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming to Switch. Nor Ever Crisis, which should have been the case. But we are getting Crisis Core Reunion for Switch. Something's not right here, you know? It's one of those like, I'm very skeptical about that. Especially considering it's from Square Enix, you know? If what we've learned from Square Enix is this, is that if they're going to put it on Switch, there's a catch. Much like how they did the Kingdom Hearts series and stuff like that, they've released it on cloud. And I have no doubt in my mind that Crisis Core Reunion will probably be available on cloud as well. But maybe from the negative feedback, they'll probably learn from that mistake, and they'll release it physically, or digitally, depending. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see how it comes out in the end. But still, this makes me happy. This is like, next to like, what was the other good ones? Oh, gosh. The sad thing is that from where my anticipation was towards, like, say, State of Play and all that stuff. All of the stuff that they have talked about there. Crisis Core Reunion was my biggest one. Again, I wanted this on modern day console, but for some reason they wasn't doing it. Well, now they're doing it, but it's a remake. So it's like, it's what I wanted technically, so I'll take it, you know? This makes me happy. But then we have the final announcement. Now, we all knew it was going to be part 2 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. We all knew that. We all had this sudden feeling. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, I doubt they would want us to wait long for the next installment. It doesn't make sense to keep us waiting this long and stuff like that. Not to say that I'm impatient, but it's one of those things where it's like, this was like my biggest worry when they announced that Final Fantasy VII Remake was going to be in multiple parts. We don't know how long it was going to take for it to be fully released, you know what I mean? So, here we are, part 2 is going to be coming out next winter. That's what's insane. Okay, think about the scheduled release that Square Enix got right now. What Square Enix got right now. Some of their heavy hitters are coming out within the next 2, maybe even 3 years. They are on a roll this time. And it's like, holy crap, they're back. Just from where they kind of sinked down a bit and they were like, oh no, this ain't good. And then all of a sudden they brought in their highlights and it's like, oh, it's just My gosh, I was just like, oh man, Square, I want to hate you sometimes, but at the same time, you're so awesome. It's just, maybe it's because of just their games, you know? Again, it's so cool to see that next to Final Fantasy Crisis Core Reunion, which is going to be coming out later this year, or even early next year, depending on how things go, we will eventually see Final Fantasy VII Remake, or in this case, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Don't know why they're doing that, but they are. But anyway, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be coming out next winter. So, yeah, that's cool. But not as cool as the final announcement they made. They made one final announcement. Now, here's the thing, you know, we were all curious about how many parts they were going to be doing it. We argued about saying like 3, maybe even 4. Some of us joked about it and said probably even 7. Which would be stupid, but still. And it's going to be a 3-parter. It's a 3-parter. It's been confirmed that it's going to be released as a 3-part saga. It's essentially Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then one other Final Fantasy VII Part 3. Whatever title they choose to go with, we now know is only 3 parts, which means after the second part, we probably won't have to wait that much longer for part 3. When that will be, even I don't know. But either way, we've gotten quite a little bit of information. Again, while this year has not been fantastic per se, I'm sure for some people it will be, but whoo boy, Square Enix, they know how to hang on to my wallet. They know my number. They know my numbers. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comments below. What was your highest highlight in terms of this year? I'm sure some of you, for the lot of you, will be probably Final Fantasy related, but I'm sure there might be something that you might have had interest from the other events, as well as State of Play. So let me know in the comments below, and I shall see you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you guys later.